The oracles of the UCI. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. You therefore sober and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you're sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as their children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication, and all uncleanness, or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you up on earth, therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Which is peace on Yahweh's holy Sabbath day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. You know, when you start watching all of the things, that we see on the television about them trying to go to Mars and setting up things in space, their whole point is to get away from righteous judgment here on earth. They know at some point that is coming, and I guess if they believe that if they just get away from here, that they won't have to deal with having to answer for all the things that have been committed. One thing you notice when you look at how the Gentiles operate, they are extremely meticulous when it comes down to their organization. And all of the efforts that have been put forth against us is to make sure that we are not organized. When you get right down to it, we have all these skills. Our problem is organization. Yeah, it's where you have a person who have this amazing gift. You know, you have the difference between Allen Iverson and a Michael Jordan. Allen Iverson, absolutely talented. He's practiced. What practice? I don't got no practice. How many rings he got? I loved him. How many rings he got? Organization is our problem. It's not gifts. We got that. We got gifts popping out the yin yang. So what the adversary learned is how to hold us down is to attack our organization. Make sure that we don't get organized. And if we operate, no matter how gifted we are, if we operate in an unorganized fashion, then we won't be able to make it to that next level. And every time it's what happens. You have a little league team that has this amazing skill, and then they come against these little boys who've been coached by professional players. They don't have the same gifts that them hood boys got, but they wear them hood boys out. Why? Organization. They know what a ball going for to even lead that dude's hand. They watch him. They learn to break down every bit. All right, if he come up here, the ball going down there. If he bring it back over here, the ball going up. They not only learn their opponent, they learn their friends. They say, I know where his ball going because I know how he throw. That's organization. This is what holds us back, not our gifts. When you look at how systematically we have been able to be held back, it's because we refuse organization. We think our gifts is going to take us over the mountaintop. And there's a whole lot of gifted people in prison right now. There's a whole lot of gifted people buried in the ground right now. Because when the people tried to come to them about organizing, he said, I don't need none of your organizing. I'm gifted. There are people that says, oh, no, that was a guy playing with LeBron that was absolutely better than LeBron. Anybody heard of him? Yeah. Don't nobody know him, right? Right. So then it's not just about gifts. It then becomes about how those things are being organized. So then when you look at a organized push against something, they didn't come at our gifts. They came at our organization. Pay attention. As it is written, the Gentiles seek after wisdom. And part of that wisdom is studying the past and present of their adversaries. When we examine the book, we find the way that Israel operates. When a judge or Messiah was raised up, the people would walk accordingly. But when the judge was dead, the people fell back into degradation. By this, then, the Gentiles have concluded that if you kill the leader of the movement falls. Or, if you cut off the head, the body will die. Let's begin today's sermon in Deuteronomy chapter 18. And we're going to read verses 15 through 21. Today's sermon is entitled, Preventing the Rise of a Black Messiah. Preventing the Rise of a Black Messiah. Deuteronomy chapter 18. And we're going to read verses 15 through 21.
Yahweh your Elohim will raise up unto you a prophet from the midst of you, of your brethren, like unto me. Unto him you shall hearken.
So they already know then that there is this prophesied individual who's going to come unto Israel. So they're already on lookout for when this individual may appear. And if people who are ruling over you, it is not in their best interest for this individual to show up. Okay? Go ahead.
According to all that you desirest of Yahweh your El in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of Yahweh my El, neither let me see this great fire any more, that I die not. And Yahweh said unto me, they have well spoken that which they have spoken. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto you, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass, that whosoever will not hearken unto my words which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. But the prophet, which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. And if you say in your heart, how shall we know the word which Yahweh hath not spoken?
It says, when a prophet speaks in the name of Yahweh, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which Yahweh has not spoken, but the prophet has spoken it presumptuously. You shall not be afraid of him. So now let's go to Judges chapter 2. And you find that this is how Yahweh operates with the children of Israel. Now, the first part of attacking our organization spiritually is attacking our understanding of the Holy Scriptures. See, if you can just get us to just go and do song and dance and chanting, I know y'all, browse the internet. You watch some of that stuff and see how much some of the people, they take a 5-minute song and it be 35 minutes. Oh, they just are chanting, they marching all around the place. I mean, you don't know what it is you getting involved with. Well, if you spend all of that time dealing with that, then you can't really deal with the understanding of what the Most High requires of you. See, that is an attack on your organization. See, that's how you will not be able to get biblically organized in your heart and in your mind, because you too busy singing and dancing. Should there be a song? Yes. It ain't supposed to last an hour, though. We ain't supposed to be up in there chanting. See, one thing the adversary knows, and he uses his minions for this. If you're doing this, then you ain't doing that. He don't really care what it is you doing. He just want to make sure you ain't doing that. He don't care what he used to get you to not do that. It could be this. It don't matter. As long as you ain't doing that. Why? Because your organization skills are going to grow if you keep doing that. Then you're going to start taking the things that you have gift-wise, and you're going to be able to organize that for the greater good of Yahweh, your Elohim. Judges chapter 2, and let's start that at verse 1.
And then an angel of Yahweh came up from Gilgal to Bochim, and said, I made you to go up out of Egypt, and have brought you onto the land which I swear unto your fathers. And I said, I'll never break my covenant with you. And you shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. You shall throw down their altars, but you have not obeyed my voice. Why have you done this? Wherefore I also said, I'll not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare unto you.
Okay, so when you don't actively separate yourself like you're supposed to, then Yahweh said, well, you know what? That's going to be a judgment. All right? There's supposed to be a separation between you and the heathen. But you seem to have a problem separating. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let the heathen go ahead and move next door. I'm going to let him move next door, and I want you to smell the flesh of his pig burning. I tried to get you to separate, but you had a problem with that. I tell you what, so let's not have separation anymore. Let's go ahead and have togetherness. You and the heathen, hold hands, walk down the street. Now I want to see if you're going to serve me. You put this test on you. Go ahead.
You know what, brother, here's a perfect example of where people talk about, I talked to God last night. In the beginning it says, an angel of Yahweh came from Gilgal to Bochim, and said, this is the angel talking, I made you to go up out of Egypt, and I have brought you onto the land which I swear unto your fathers. This is the angel saying, I did this.
Right.
But everybody want to say they talk to God.
Let me tell you something, bro. You think somebody went to seminary school and don't understand that? They understand that. It just sounds better when you said I talk to God. Come on, bro. Come on, man. Don't sound good. You know, I talked to an angel last night. It don't really roll off the tongue good. But when you say I talk to God, and you know how to God, you got to really hit the G and lay on the D when you say it. You know, I spoke to God last night. That just sounds good, bro. And no person has gone to seminary school and don't understand that the angel speaks in Yahweh's name, says thus says Yah. Man, they know this. They have been playing games, brother. Go ahead.
And it came to pass, when the angel of Yahweh spake these words unto all the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept. And they called the name of that place Bochim, and they sacrificed there unto Yahweh. And when Yahshua had let the people go, the children of Israel went every man onto his inheritance to possess the land. And the people served Yahweh all the days of Yahshua and all the days of the elders that outlived Yahshua.
All right. So the adversaries of Israel are learning how to deal with Israel just by studying Israel. Okay, so they have a tendency to walk as long as that individual who Yahweh has put his power and strength in is alive. As long as they can see it. As soon as they can't see it, they fall. So then you have to understand, why do you think you have Sunday Christians or Sabbath day Hebrews? What happened? They can see Yahweh's people. Soon as they hit South Harrison and bust that right, I don't see them no more. What happened? Oh, that demon come back out. But they've been hiding the demon in the bag. They wasn't trying to get rid of the demon. They put the demon in the bag and said, just be quiet while I'm in here. All right, just stay in there. Stay zipped up. Don't come out now. I'll put you some snacks in there later. Right. Learn your people so that you understand when you see something, what you are seeing. This is the manner of Israel. So our adversaries learn how to deal with us. Go ahead.
Who had seen all the great works of Yahweh that he did for Israel. And Yahshua the son of Nun, the servant of Yahweh, died being 110 years old. And they buried him in the border of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the Mount of Ephraim, on the north side of the hill Gaash. And also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers. And there arose another generation after them, which knew not Yahweh, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel.
Now, how is that possible? Okay? You know, while the people were still alive, because understand, it wasn't just Yahshua. It says, and the people who were with him. All right? What happened? We were embarrassed when we saw those people, and we looked in their eyes and knew that we were contemplating wrong. We no longer got embarrassed once that generation was gone. Why do you think there's disrespect to persons that you have among people? Well, a person don't mind flipping out to this person, but they won't flip out to that person. Why is that? Embarrassment. I believe that person sees me, but this one does not. What do you think that is? What do you think that is that we would be able to walk as long as the person is alive, but as soon as that person dies, we fall off? See, we see the Yahweh in that individual. Then it causes embarrassment in us. So respect to persons kicks in, and we don't see the Yahweh in that individual, so we can go ahead and act a fool. Go ahead.
But as time has gone on, we've accepted what used to be shame more and more and don't care.
Yep.
You and I know when we were coming up, a family member go off somewhere and they go, where's so-and-so? He off to college. That was that metal bar college. But there was that thing of shame, you know what I mean? And then a teenager girl get pregnant, they like you talk, they'd be off somewhere. Where you been? I was down in the country with my, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but nowadays, all of this stuff is a badge of honor.
Yeah, ain't that crazy? Ain't that crazy? It used to be, you know, I remember, you know, when somebody was asking me about a family member, and they said, is he serving his country? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I didn't say it was in the U.S. penitentiary, but, you know, they jumped right out there. He is definitely serving his country. Ain't no doubt about that. Yes, he is. Go ahead, bro.
And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of Yahweh and served Baalim. And they forsook Yahweh, El of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked Yahweh to anger.
Right. So then our adversaries see this. So then they learn, okay, this is how we're going to get this done. All right? If you take away the head, they won't keep walking. See? And when Yahweh trusts you, he'll let your head get taken away for a minute so he can prove to the devil, I bet they still walk. Devil say, I bet they won't. All right, take the head then. You can't kill him, though. Take the head. Now let's sit back. I bet they walk. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, bro.
But you know, that's the detriment of a leader who's not looking for anything to be wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like we keep telling people, hey man, every man in this congregation we're set to be a nation of priests. If you don't step up to it, what happens when the leadership is gone?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we say we've got vast videos, we've got vast stuff, but everybody likes to just come, elder priest. So how do you go about this? Why don't you go on the website and look at some of the previous videos that go in depth in that? You know, but everybody just want to run and get it right then. During the video, you might learn some other stuff that you don't have on your mind right now. But the preparation is, like he's saying, you lose the head, we are meant to be a nation of priests. Somebody should be able to step up, keep it going. Shouldn't just die here. But bad leadership only looks out for themselves and don't care what happens when they gone. Jacob said, I teach priests.
Mm-hmm.
He knew what his job was, to prepare the brothers to be priests, to keep this going. You can be a seat dweller, or you can prepare to one day have to be a priest.
Now, some folks don't even know we got a website. You might say website, where is that? When Elder Yaakov died, somebody came to me and said, and this was one of his sons, can you give me a copy of all my daddy's classes? Boy, your daddy been teaching 30 years. You don't get the hell out my face. But see, this is us. No. You need to see yourself in that. See, afterward, now we're gonna try to see. This is us. We sleep during class, and then when the test comes, now we want to cram. Now we want 30 years worth of teaching. What kind of fool would I be to try to make 30 years worth of DVD if you don't remove yourself from my presence? You have any idea how many? What? That? See, this is us. Now we want to organize in hindsight. You can't organize during the middle of the battle. Now you trying to figure out, well, I'm going to put my magazines, and then I got my rifle, and then where my boots at? Anybody see my boots? You trying to organize while stuff's zipping past your head. It's too late for organization at that point. But this is normally when we start thinking about it. But you need to understand, your enemy has already studied you. Go ahead.
Verse 13, and they forsook Yahweh and served Baal and Ashtaroth. And the anger of Yahweh was hot against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of spoilers that spoiled them. Mm-hmm. And he sold them into the hands of their enemies round about.
So then one thing our adversaries don't want us to understand is how Yahweh deals with disobedient worshipers, that he sells us into captivity. They want you to believe that you were slaves because you was uneducated, butt-naked Africans walking around and you had never seen the color red before. So then they dropped some red cloth and you said, ooh, Mutumbu, red. And then you went and they threw you in a cage. See, that is to make you think you were so dumb. See, you were so dumb, ignorant and butt-naked, they taught you what clothes was. You didn't know. So now you then believe that you must have deserved captivity. That captivity actually helped you. See, that's a attack on the next generation. So much, in fact, that you won't even want to discuss slavery. But when you understand that slavery is a result of Yahweh's punishment, now all of a sudden, wait a minute. Now you start to realize, wait a minute now. Wait a minute, that means we somebody. It's not in other people's best interest for you to understand who and what you are. Go ahead.
So that they could not any longer stand before their enemies.
Right. They want you to believe that you can't stand before your enemies because you're weak. You can't stand before your enemies because Yahweh, your Elohim, has stepped away from you. Go ahead.
Whithersoever they went out, the hand of Yahweh was against them for evil. As Yahweh had said, and as Yahweh had sworn unto them, and they were greatly distressed. Nevertheless, Yahweh raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them.
All right. Now, remember, so much that there was a push and a plan that was here that the director of the FBI says that we must prevent the rise of a black Messiah. So where did he get this concept from? Pay attention as you read. Nevertheless, Yahweh raised up judges which delivered them out of the hands of him, those that spoiled them. We were being spoiled here. So they need to prevent. Why would he think that? Keep reading.
And yet they would not hearken unto their judges, but they went a-whoring after other gods, and bowed themselves unto them. They turned quickly out of the way which their fathers walked in, obeying the commandments of Yahweh, but they did not so. And when Yahweh raised them up judges, then Yahweh was with the judge, and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge.
All the days of the judge. So when people start to study us, they figure out this is the only time they're going to walk. So then all they have to do is to make sure that this judge never rises up. What do you think the judge is? If he saves the people, then he's a Messiah. Go ahead.
And we don't see the trickery of it. What they're looking for is that one person that the mass will listen to. We had that when they said with Malcolm, that's too much power for one man. Too many people, because even people who were not Muslims was listening to him.
You got it.
He had to go. Too much people listening to King. He got to go. And unfortunately,
they call him a troublemaker. They call King a troublemaker. The non-violent dude was called a troublemaker. Now, if he was a troublemaker, I don't know what the hell I am. Because he believed in non-violence. I don't. I mean, I'm non-violent as long as you don't come to my house. You know what I'm saying? I believe in non-violence until you step across where that mailbox at, and then I believe in hella violence. So I don't know, but this don't look good, because if he was nonviolent and he was still a troublemaker. Okay, go ahead.
For repented Yahweh because of their groanings by reason of them that oppressed them and vexed them. And it came to pass when the judge was dead that they returned and corrupted themselves more than their fathers. In following other gods to serve them and to bow down unto them, they ceased not from their own doings, nor from their stubborn way. And the anger of Yahweh was hot against Israel, and he said, because that this people has transgressed my covenant which I commanded their fathers, and have not hearkened unto my voice, I also will not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Yahshua left when he died.
I also will not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Yahshua left when he died. So if you decide that you gonna hang around all of these dead individuals, then he gonna make it to where you can't get rid of the dead individuals now. You pulled out your own judgment. Go ahead.
That through them I may prove Israel, whether they will keep the way of Yahweh to walk therein, as their fathers did keep it, or not.
Right. So then you have provided yourself this test. Go ahead.
Therefore Yahweh left those nations without driving them out hastily, neither delivered he them into the hand of Yahshua.
All right. So then when we understand this concept of what happens, Yahweh raises up a judge, and this goes on and on, all right, throughout this book of Judges, okay? That enough to where we can see that this is a way that Yahweh operates. So anybody who's dealing with us learns the way that Yahweh operates with us. So understanding that, I want you to read this stuff, the info from the COINTELPRO.
COINTELPRO long-range goals in prevention of a black messiah. Counterintelligence program, black nationalists, hate groups, racial intelligence. For maximum effectiveness of the counterintelligence program and to prevent wasted effort, long-range goals are being set. Prevent the coalition of militant black nationalist groups. In unity, there is strength. A truism that is no less valid for all is triteness.
All right, so in unity, there is strength. So their goal is to make sure that we were not unified. All right, attack the efforts to organize. Go ahead.
An effective coalition of black nationalist groups might be the first step toward a real MAMA, Black Revolutionary Army, in America, the beginning of a true black revolution.
So to make sure that these things don't happen, then they had to implement some things. Go ahead.
Prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement.
All right, which is exactly what you were just saying. Go ahead.
Malcolm X might have been such a messiah. He is the martyr of the movement today. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and Elijah Muhammad all aspire to this position. Elijah Muhammad is less of a threat because of his age. King could be a very real contender for this position should he abandon his supposed obedience to white liberal doctrines.
Now, this comes from the FBI. Now, this is their writing. Go ahead.
Nonviolence, and embrace black nationalism. Carmichael has the necessary charisma to be a real threat in this way.
Once again, the ones who had charisma, who the people might listen to, were deemed a threat. Go ahead. Next graphic.
Prevent violence on the part of black nationalist groups. This is of primary importance and is, of course, a goal of our investigative activity. It should also be a goal of the counterintelligence program to pinpoint potential troublemakers and neutralize them before they exercise their potential for violence.
Now, examine what is the push. Pinpoint potential troublemakers. They haven't made trouble yet. They look like they might cause trouble. Pinpoint them and neutralize them. Okay, so how are they going to do that? Go ahead.
Prevent militant black nationalist groups and leaders from gaining respectability.
All right, so then that's the first step in neutralizing them. Make sure you take away the respectability from that organization. Go ahead.
By discrediting them to three separate segments of the community. The goal of discrediting black nationalists must be handled tactically in three ways. You must discredit those groups and individuals to, first, the responsible Negro community.
Second, so we'll automatically go against them. So there's a separate thing between, these knuckles and those nickels. All right? So separate them so the responsible Negro community is not supposed to want to have anything to do with them. Go ahead.
Second, they must be discredited to the white community, both the responsible community and to liberals who have vestiges of sympathy for militant black nationalists simply because they are Negroes. Third, these groups must be discredited in the eyes of Negro radicals, the followers of the movement. This last area requires entirely different tactics from the first two. Publicity about violent tendencies and radical statements merely enhances black nationalists to the last group. It adds respectability in a different way.
All right, so those who like the fact that the Panthers would go out and defend people, that only added to their thing. So they had to use that in a way so that it went against. So you had to make them, bloodthirsty, and that they would just shoot up anything, that they would do all of these things. And come to figure out, what was happening is they were the ones who were being attacked. But that narrative was always changed. Go ahead. Go to the next one.
My brother, this whole militant black thing, we think this is so far-fetched because we hear in the name of King and X and all that. This happened, last year? 2 years ago with NFAC?
Yep.
Because what? It was a militant group.
Exactly. who carried arms, just like the Euro Gentiles. What happened? They claim he just pointed something at a non-clothed agent. Now, how he supposed to know that that's an agent? And what he had was a flashlight, I think, on his rifle. And he looked up at it. They couldn't find anything. They then blamed that to lock up this guy. What happened? You heard anything else about the NFAC after they got the leader?
It's like what you said. Cut the head off.
Cut off the head, and the body will die. I used to ask my elder, I said, why don't you think all the Hebrews would get together? It would make, a really strong movement. He said, yeah, and it would make us a really easy target.
I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to sit down and shut up there. I'll be over here.
Go ahead, bro.
I mean, you got to think about it. The position that you and I were put in when we went to the prisons. What'd he say? His contacts from D.C. He never told us what contacts or how he heard about us.
Right. My contacts in D.C. said, I should get y'all to come down here and teach. Who the hell are those people? I don't know nobody in D.C. You know somebody in D.C.?
Nope.
Well, somebody in D.C. know you.
You do.
Yeah, I know. Hey. Go ahead, bro.
A final goal should be to prevent the long-range growth of militant black organizations, especially among youth. Specific tactics to prevent these groups from converting young people must be developed.
All right, now, there's some things I need you to pay attention, because later on we're going to see some other things, and you have to ask yourself, how are those things happening and nothing is being done? It says specifically not to convert these young people. Yet we're starting to see some organizations that all they have to do is open up a building and all the young people just run in. They get to have people marching down the street and police don't stop them or nothing. Okay, there's something else you got to read in their plan. Keep going.
Targets. Primary targets of the counterintelligence program, black nationalist hate groups.
And to become a hate group, all you have to do is not, like get beat and, you made a noise. Like you yell to you like, pow, ah! You know what, they hate group. You see, he was resisting arrest. I hit him with the billy club and he screamed. He was resisting. That's a hate group. Now, on the other side, you have the U.S. trying to pass laws that said, I saw a commercial and it said, Hitler was right, appeared over 70,000 times. And it was hate speech, and it led to all this hate among people. So all you have to do is say something against other people, and it's a hate crime. I wish that's all they did to us, was talk. I was raised, this was something that obviously this didn't happen to the U.S., but we was raised in school. When we said, Mama, they told me, they said you was a fat, bald-headed man, baby. Because, we fat, you talk about our mama, that was school. You know what I'm saying? You say, your mama was a fat, bald-headed man. Pow! You know what I'm saying? Right up. When you go home, your mama said, sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt me. We was raised on that. Now go back to school and you don't fight just because somebody said something about you. Yet whole ethnicities are passing laws so you can't say nothing about them. We down in the street, it ain't a hate crime, but it's a hate crime if somebody says something about somebody else. It's some totally different climate going on. Go ahead, bro.
Primary targets of the counterintelligence program, black nationalist hate groups, should be the most violent and radical groups and their elders.
Leaders.
We should emphasize those leaders and organizations that are nationwide in scope and are most capable of disrupting this country. These targets, members and followers of the Student Nonviolent Coordination Committee,
SNCC,
Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Revolutionary Action Movement, Nation of Islam, offices handling these cases and those of Stokely Carmichael of SNCC, H. Rap Brown of SNCC, Martin Luther King of SCLC, Maxwell Stanford of RAM and Elijah Muhammad of NOI should be alert for counterintelligence suggestions.
Now, some of these, then you have to look. You know, Nation of Islam have been around for a long time. So, in part of that kind of intelligence, did somebody agree to be some kind of agent? Because nothing has happened to them. And their organization is bigger and stronger. But there are some things that will, come up in this conversation. Let's go to Judges chapter 13.
Judges chapter 13 and verse 1. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of Yahweh. Now,
you read that over and over right there. That is a sad. This sentence, I think they just stopped writing it. They just say, all right, give me that, and just made a stamp. It's a stamp. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of Yahweh. You don't have to write that one. Just give me this evil again stamp. All right, now start writing after that. Because this is a sad reoccurrence right here. But then we know what's coming after it. Go ahead.
And Yahweh delivered them into the hand of the Philistines 40 years.
First of all, your adversary does not want you to know that your slavery has nothing to do with your ability as a man to protect yourself. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. It has to do with your desire to worship other gods and not worship him fully. That is why your power was taken away from you. This is the first part of the attack. Make sure that you don't know that. Because when you don't have this information, you start questioning yourself as a man. You start questioning yourself as a nation. You start questioning the ability of your own people. And it's confusing because you say, individually we get into things and we excel. So how is it as a nation we were able to be completely held back? It becomes confusion. And it's like this confusion just running around in our head. How can both of these things be? Well, you don't need organization to be one man. That's why we forever stay individualized. You don't have to attack our gifts. Just attack our organization. Then we think the gift overrides the entire organization. Go ahead.
And there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren, and bare not. And the angel of Yahweh appeared unto the woman, and said unto her, Behold now, you are barren, and beareth not, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray you, and drink not wine nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto Elohim from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines.
Now, why is this one important? This Messiah is being brought forth from birth. It's not an individual who's already a man who Yahweh then raises up to come and deliver Israel. Then you have to think about the situation dealing with Yahshua. You're talking about being birthed as a regular individual growing into the deliverer of Israel. When you deal with Gideon, you're talking about a man who was already a man. This is not that case. So then this lets you know that Yahweh says, okay, your deliverance has a time. Because clearly, as a child, he's not going to be able to deliver you. So he's got to grow. Learn to hate this system. Learn to feel this way. Learn to feel that way as his strength grows. So then what? Then if the adversaries of Israel knew who he was when he was a child, don't you think they would have killed him then? Go ahead.
You know, it's interesting. You just made a statement of learn to hate this system. And I think that's where we've fallen off, is that we were taught to assimilate into the system. So we get as adults, and then we realize that we hate the system.
Right. Right. When you realize that, you know, you paid everything that they asked you to pay and your stuff still got taken. You realize that you paid all your stuff on time, but there was still a late fee. That's when you learn to hate this system. See, as a kid, you don't know. All you know is you came in the house and the lights was on. You didn't know that your mama had to meet them people out in the grass and say, here go extra 50, don't turn that off. You just came in the house, the lights was on. You don't know enough to hate the system yet. But see, when you get your own bill and you find out, what you mean? You just threw a $400 bill on here saying,
Well, you know what I'm saying, we when we looked at it, we couldn't tell your meter was acting funny.
what they got to do with me?
Well, we suppose that it should have been more. So we added the we couldn't tell price.
What? What? Where's that in the brochure? That's so you learn how to hate this system. See? But if you ain't got yourself together enough to even get organized enough in life to have a bill in your name, you don't even hate the system enough. You ain't got enough in your name to even know how to hate the system. Go ahead.
Verse 6. Then the woman came and told her husband, saying, a man of Elohim came on to me, and his countenance was like the countenance of an angel of Elohim, very terrible. But I asked him not whence he was, neither told he me his name.
Right, but everybody's saying, you know, we got a whole book of angels. Angel's name, and the angel Raphael came and spoke, and the angel this, and the angel that. Yet the angel talking to Yaakov, what you want to know my name for? The angel saying, you don't need to know my name. Worship Yahweh. Don't worry about what my name is. Yet we got books that don't have nothing but angel names in it. Right. I can tell you what angel gave you that book. Go ahead.
But he said unto me, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and now drink no wine nor strong drink, neither eat any unclean thing, for the child shall be a Nazarite to Elohim from the womb to the day of his death. Then Manoah entreated Yahweh and said, O my Adonai, let the man of Elohim which you did send come again unto us, and teach us what we shall do unto the child that shall be born. And Elohim hearkened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of Elohim came again unto the woman as she sat in the field. But Manoah, her husband, was not with her.
And Elohim hearkened to the voice of him, and the angel went back to the woman. Angel still didn't come to him. Go ahead.
He said, send it to us.
Yeah, hey.
Send it to her.
Hey, let me tell you something. It behooves every person to know where the strength is in the house. If the woman is the more spiritual one, don't try to take that job unto yourself just because you the man. If you know, and I'm sorry if this hurts some of y'all man feelings, if you know you spiritually stupid, then let the angel come and talk about it, okay? You know you're spiritually stupid, all right? You can't discern, then let the angel go ahead and go to her. But at least he had sense enough to know, come to us. So I'll be there when this conversation going. Go ahead.
And the woman made haste and ran and showed her husband and said unto him, behold, the man has appeared unto me that came unto me the other day.
Now, do you have the kind of woman who would have came and told you? Angel, wait right here. I'm finna go get my husband. Or you had the kind of woman who had the conversation.
Well, I'll tell you everything he said. You know, sometime, at some point, you know, in bits and pieces. I mean, you'll get it over a 20-year period. I mean, you'll get it somehow.
What kind of woman you got? Will she stop the angel's conversation, come get you, and say, have this conversation with us? Or will she have that conversation and tell you the parts that she wants you to know about that conversation? Go ahead.
And Manoah arose and went after his wife, and came to the man, and said unto him, are you the man that spake unto the woman? And he said, I am. And Manoah said, now let your words come to pass. How shall we order the child, and how shall we do unto him? And the angel of Yahweh said unto Manoah, of all that I said unto the woman, let her beware. She may not eat of anything that comes of the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink, or eat any unclean thing. All that I commanded her, let her observe.
So for this individual to maintain the physical strength, then it has to be connected with his spiritual. He has to eat a certain way. So then the adversary said, well, you know what? Let us take all real grocery stores out their neighborhood and just put them little corner stores. So all they eat, you know what I'm saying, is crunchies, ho-hos, and ding-dongs. You know what I'm saying? Now, how they going to, get spiritually strong eating crunchies, ho-hos, and ding-dongs? They're not even real food. They come in a bag or a can. So his spiritual development is connected to how he eats. Go ahead.
You know, when you even look at the conversations, somebody might say, well, it was disrespectful. He talking to the woman. But at the end of the day, who's going to be raising that boy? Well, exactly. She had to run and go get Manoah.
Right.
You're not going to be there. You're not the one preparing his food. You're not the one that's going to see what he's drinking. So it's in her best interest to know.
Right. Like I said, what kind of woman do you have? See? Because, do you turn around and you tell your woman, all right, the kid, this is what the kid eat, and as soon as you walk out, here you go, baby, here goes some bacon. Here goes some bacon. And your daddy don't eat pork. But you know what? Pork is delicious. I grew up off this pork. What kind do you have? Do he eat that way just when you in the room? Go ahead.
And Manoah said unto the angel of Yahweh, I pray you, let us detain you until we shall have made ready a kid for you. And the angel of Yahweh said unto Manoah, though you detain me, I will not eat of your bread. And if you will offer a burnt offering, you must offer it unto Yahweh. For Manoah knew not that he was an angel of Yah. And Manoah said unto the angel of Yahweh, what is your name? That when your sayings come to pass, we may do you honor. And then the angel of Yahweh said unto him, why ask you thus after my name, seeing it is secret?
If the name is secret, how we got an angel book? How we have an angel book if the name is secret? If we go through this whole book, we can count the number of angels on one hand. Go ahead.
So Manoah took a kid with a meat offering and offered it upon a rock unto Yahweh. And the angel did wondrously, and Manoah and his wife looked on. For it came to pass, when the flame went up toward heaven from off the altar, that the angel of Yahweh ascended in the flame of the altar. And Manoah and his wife looked on it, and fell on their faces to the ground. But the angel of Yahweh did no more appear to Manoah and to his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was an angel of Yah. And Manoah said unto his wife, we shall surely die, because we have seen Elohim.
Now you want to know why the angel talked to the woman. Keep going.
But his wife said unto him, if Yahweh were pleased to kill us, he would not have received a burnt offering and a meat offering at our hands. Neither would he have showed us all these things, nor would, as at this time, have told us such things as these.
Okay, now, Manoah said on his wife, verse 22, we shall surely die, because we have seen Elohim. Now, who comes and gives him this comfort? The woman. So Manoah was probably big, strong, and not that bright. Okay. He then gives birth to Samson, who's big, strong.
Not that bright.
Not that bright. Okay. So we see what we're working with here. All right. Keep reading, brother.
And the woman bare a son and called his name Samson. And the child grew, and Yahweh blessed him. And the spirit of Yahweh began to move him at times in the camp of Dan between Zorah and Eshtal.
Now, the interesting thing about reading the whole situation of Samson, he is the only one that all across the entire, Gentile teaching system, he's the only one they will let be black. You ain't never think about that? That the entire book, everybody white, except when we get to Samson.
When he get it, you know what? Big, strong, and not that bright. Black. Let him be black. Let him be black. He the only one that they okay being black. Now that's quite interesting. That is quite interesting. He's also the one that they very, because he come out of Dan. Also the one that they conveniently want to, you know what? That's why Dan ain't in Revelation. We didn't see Dan got cut off for his blackness. Right. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 11. So then it is very well known that Yahweh will then raise up a Savior or Messiah out of the midst of their brethren to save them.
Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of Elohim, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. By faith Abel offered unto Elohim a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, Elohim testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaks. By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found, because Elohim had translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony, that he pleased Elohim. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that comes to Elohim must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him.
So, it is then in your adversary's best interest to get you to doubt yourself and to doubt your Elohim. Go ahead.
By faith Noah, being warned of Elohim of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. By faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should have after received for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Esaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which has foundation, whose builder and maker is Elohim. Through faith also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed, and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Therefore sprang there even of one, and him as good as dead, so many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the sand which is by the seashore innumerable. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country. And truly, if they had been mindful of that country from whence they came out, they might have had opportunity to have returned. But now they desire a better country, that is, an heavenly. Wherefore Elohim is not ashamed to be called their El, for he has prepared for them a city. By faith Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Esau, and he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, that in Esau shall your seed be called, accounting that Elohim was able to raise him up, even from the dead, from whence also he received him in a figure. By faith Esau blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come.
Jump to verse 32.
And what shall I say more? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, and of Barak, and of Samson, and of Jephthah, of David also, and Samuel, and of the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouth of lions.
Right. All of these deliverers of the children of Israel. So they understand how Yahweh works. So they understand that they must stop these individuals before they understand who they are. Go ahead.
Quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead raised to life again, and others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. And others had trial of cruel mockings and scourgings, yes, moreover of bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn asunder, were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts, and in mountains, and in dens and caves of the earth. And these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise. Elohim having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect.
All right. Now, I want to go to this article from The Guardian, and I want to read some things from it because it gives a pretty good breakdown of some things throughout, some time, even some present understanding. Go ahead.
The FBI has long disrupted and discredited civil rights leaders. It should put its authorities to better use by holding officers accountable. Throughout its history, the Federal Bureau of Investigation has viewed black activism as a potential national security threat. It has used its ample investigative powers not to suppress violence, but to inhibit the speech and association rights of black activists. And its reaction to the protests following the police killings of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd shows little has changed. In October 1919, a young J. Edgar Hoover, director of the Bureau of Investigation's General Intelligence Division, targeted Black Moshe, Marcus Garvey, for investigating and harassment because of his alleged association with radical elements that were agitating the Negro movement. Hoover admitted Garvey had violated no federal laws, but the Bureau, the precursor organization to the FBI, infiltrated Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association with informative provocateurs and undercover agents who searched for years for any charge that could justify his deportation.
Right. So when they could not find anything, they went and got agents to go and try to produce something. Go ahead.
The Justice Department ultimately won a conviction against Garvey on a dubious mail fraud charge in 1923. Meanwhile, white vigilantes, police, and soldiers targeted black communities with violence during this period, which included the Red Summer of 1919, the Tulsa Massacre of 1921, and scores of lynchings, did not receive the same focused attention from Hoover's agents.
Right. So things would happen to us, we retaliate, and we get investigated. Not the individuals who committed the violence to us that caused us to want to protect ourselves. Go ahead.
The FBI used similar tactics to disrupt, discredit, and neutralize leaders of the civil rights and anti-war movements of the 1960s. The FBI's COINTELPRO program targeting civil rights leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. and Stokely Carmichael was specifically designed to prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement rather than to prevent any violent acts they might perpetuate. The methods include informant-driven disinformation campaigns designed to spark conflict within the movement.
All right, so pay attention to that. The methods included information-driven disinformation campaign. See, we thought misinformation started recently with the Donald Trump situation. It said disinformation campaigns designed to spark conflict within the movement. Part of how Afeni Shakur and those individuals got off is somebody raided the FBI files and pulled out what they had been doing. And it shows that those pamphlets that were made saying that they were going to do all this evil, the pamphlets actually came from the FBI. It didn't come from the Black Panthers. Once that information was put out, that's what helped Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mom, defend herself in a court of law. Once that came out, done deal. So these things that they were saying they were doing, the whole time it was agents that were doing it. So although we may have our security and we do our things, do understand the biggest harm gonna come from somebody who gonna come and sit right down in the seat next to you and say that they are just like you, and the whole time they the informant. Go ahead.
The sad thing is that the disinformation campaign has gone from just pamphlets and media stuff. Now we know that crimes are being prevented, which look like it's a black individual, but it's somebody dressed up
Right.
in a costume, making them look like it's a black person.
Right. You see, back then, blackface wasn't that believable. But you know, modern technology has made blackface so good that you think it's you. You question yourself, where was I Thursday at 7 p.m., man? Because that looked like me. Now, that was just a mask of you. Go ahead.
Discourage donors and supporters, and even break up marriages. Overt investigative activity was also used, as one stated goal of the COINTELPRO program was to inspire fear among activists by convincing them that an FBI agent lurked behind every mailbox. Exposure of the COINTELPRO abuses led to an era of reforms starting in 1976, including guidelines issued by the Attorney General, Edward Levi, to limit FBI investigations of political activity by requiring a reasonable indication of criminal activity before intrusive investigations could be launched.
Right. What happened that when they broke in there and stole those files. And it was like some radical white group that ended up doing that. So part of that was to make sure that the Gentiles would not be sympathetic to the movement. They was the ones who went and stole those files. We wasn't going to get nowhere near that office. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, the guidelines were weakened over time, most severely in December 2008 by the Bush administration Attorney General Michael Mukasey. Mukasey's guidelines authorized a new type of investigation called an assessment, which required no factual basis for suspecting individuals' wrongdoing before agents could employ intrusive investigative techniques such as overt and covert interviews, physical surveillance, government and commercial database searches, and recruiting and tasking informants. The FBI interpreted these guidelines to allow its agents to use census data to map American communities by race and ethnicity.
Now, when they did that, you have to understand we had, right before COVID, the most aggressive counting that we have ever seen that was supposed to be the census. Now, you have to ask yourself, how is it that we have this very aggressive census? They were spreading information on the census that if you didn't open the door, they were going to bring the authorities to your house. We heard of censuses before and people, largely like, yeah, whatever. No. These people were seen in droves going down the street and, they were sending letters. They were publicizing that it would be some problems if you didn't accurately fill out this paper. We've never seen anything like that before. And it's kind of interesting that right after we see the most, aggressive count, that then we see the most aggressive pandemic that this generation has ever seen. But what does Yahweh say? Hey, after you count the people, there was always a plague that came after that if they didn't give a offering for their souls. So you have to wonder if they was playing games with us the whole time. Because understand, to actually go at an adversary, you have to learn how they operate and how their God deals with them. Go ahead.
And to identify and monitor ethnic facilities and behaviors. A 2009 memo from the Atlanta FBI cited fears of a black separatist terrorism threat to justify opening an assessment that documented the growth of the black population in Georgia. So it wasn't surprising that when a new generation of political activists started the Black Lives Matter movement to protest police violence after the fatal 2014 shooting of unarmed teenager Mike Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, the FBI began tracking them all across the country, using its assessment authority to conduct month-long investigations. BLM activists reported that FBI agents had contacted them at home to warn them against attending the 2016 Republican National Convention.
Now, when you put all of these things together, you start finding out that it was all against the organization of certain things. Now, we're not going to read everything in the article, but it would behoove you to go and look at it. I want to go to that next graphic because what I thought was interesting is one of the statements that was made by J. Edgar Hoover is there will never be another black Messiah unless we create him. Now, what was he talking about? When you get down to how other governments or how, people will execute, remember he said a Mau Mau, all right, or having this revolution, and then a leader is put in place. But that leader is a public figurehead that is being controlled by the authority. So then you consider what has happened. You look at ever since, especially the Kyrie Irving thing, you have this one individual whose face is going everywhere. Matter of fact, the name of their organization barely appears because his face is on everything and it's being pushed out there. When you look at certain things, how are these, remember, part of their whole thing, make sure it doesn't go and grab a hold onto the youth. And it says, there will not be one unless we create him. What is the power in them creating him? Then when they create him, then they have the authority over him to say certain things. And you think about when they create him, then it's easy to say, you know what? We got all these members, you know what? It's okay to go and get the jab. You got to understand, that person just authorized the jab for 100,000 people. When they create him, then they can also, when you look at what happened in those other governments, Saddam was once their friend until he decided he wasn't going to follow no more. And that has happened in various cases. So it's things that we have to consider. So when we look at just some of the things of those plots, you then have to understand where those things come from. Let's go to John chapter 11. Yohanan chapter 11, and we're going to start this at verse 1.
Verse 1. Now a certain man was sick, named Lazarus, of Bethany, the town of Miriam and her sister Martha. It was that Miriam which anointed the Adonai with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore his sister sent unto him, saying, Adonai, behold, he whom you love is sick. When Yahshua heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of Elohim, that the Son of Elohim might be glorified thereby. Now Yahshua loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. When he had heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. Then after that says he to his disciples, Let us go into Judea again. His disciples say unto him, Master, the Yehudis of late sought to stone you, and go you thither again? Yahshua answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbles not, because he sees the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbles, because there is no light in him. These things said he, and after that he says unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may awake him out of sleep. Then said his disciples, Adonai, if he sleep, he shall do well. Howbeit Yahshua spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking of rest and sleep. Then said Yahshua unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go on to him. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. Then when Yahshua came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. Now Bethany was near unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off. And many of the Yehudis came to Martha and Miriam to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Yahshua was coming, went and met him, but Miriam sat still in the house. Then said Martha unto Yahshua, Adonai, if you had been here, my brother had not died. But I know that even now, whatsoever you will ask of Elohim, Elohim will give it you. Yahshua says unto her, your brother shall rise again. Martha says unto him, I know he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Yahshua said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live.
Now, they somehow believe that they can prevent this one. Because all the rest of their tactics have basically worked for them so far. That you cut off the head and the body die. The organization goes away. That's not going to work with this one. Jump to verse 45. And we should be on graphic number 22. Go ahead.
Then when many of the Yehudis which came to Miriam and had seen the things which Yahshua did, believed on him. But some of them went their ways to the Pharisees and told them what things Yahshua had done. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, what do we? For this man does many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him. And the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation.
So this is how COINTELPRO works. We call it COINTELPRO. This is how it works. We are worried about our position. So then we join the other individuals to help bring down our own folks. Understand and make sure you see these very things right here in your book. Here it is. If we don't do something about him, we are going to lose our place. Go ahead.
And we do it up to this day where we can organize, but it's always against each other to make merchandise of each other.
Right.
Like in this rap thing, what is these no-fly zones? What is it? Against our own.
Right.
And then you got these gangs who were started for one reason, then it end up we fighting against each other. And one of them, named Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year, said unto them, you know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not.
That one man should die for the people. So when you consider how things do, they said, well, let us, if we just kill this one, then we don't have to kill all the people. We just need to kill him. And then our people then come in and say, well, we'll take part in this. They know the individuals who were there to set up Malcolm X. They know the individuals who were there that set up the things within the Black Panther Party. My other used to be a Black Panther. And he said, things got strange. It was like people were coming up talking things like, let's poison the water. He said, man, hold on, man. Don't y'all think we going to drink the water? He said, man, what is wrong with y'all? Took some years to figure out, those was agents. They wasn't brother. He said, and those would be some of the most aggressive, manly-looking brothers talking all of this stuff the whole time. They were doing what they were put up to do. Go ahead.
And this spake he, not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Yahshua should die for that nation. and not for that nation only, but that also he should gather together in one the children of Elohim that were scattered abroad. Then from that day forth they took counsel together for to put him to death.
They took counsel to put him to death. We have to take care of this Messiah. Go ahead.
Yahshua therefore walked no more openly among the Yehudis, but went thence unto a country near to the wilderness, into a city called Ephraim, and there continued with his disciples. And the Yehudis' Passover was near at hand, and many went out of the country up to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves.
You know, there got to be, even at, the feast, where he says, he didn't go up to some of them openly. He said, your time is at hand, my time is not. So, because he knew at this point, look, I got some things I got to finish before, these things come to pass. Now, in looking at some of these things, I found it, real interesting. When we go to the next graphic, I was looking at a documentary, and it was going over some of the things about the Black Panthers. And there was this one individual, the very person who was in Malcolm X's inner circle, who was, in fact, the one who gave Malcolm X CPR after he was shot. He was an agent. He later joined the Black Panther Party and was an agent against them as well. So you're talking about jumping from place to place. At Afeni Shakur's trial, they found out that he was an FBI agent, also one of their chief officers who was teaching the kids how to use weapons. He's teaching them how to use a bayonet. He's teaching them all of this stuff. He was an FBI agent. And because she represented herself, she got the opportunity to question him. And the question was, when you did all of this, were you doing it as an agent or were you doing it as a Black Panther? It was extremely interesting, but it shows the levels that the powers that be will take to prevent the rise of a Black Messiah. Now, when you talk about that then also goes on to their offspring. It don't just stay there. Let's go to Matthew chapter 22. See, we have been told, to forget everything, but we'll find out that these other nations, they don't forget anything. Something happened 100 years ago, they'll still be waiting to get, some get back for it. We are the ones that actually believe that, just let everything go. See, I thought it was interesting to find out, hey, Tupac's mama was a Black Panther. Oh, they already knew that, and they couldn't wait to punish Tupac. See, he had to be punished for his mother's dealings. Because she had embarrassed him. Why do you think he had so many problems with the Haitians? No, you're not going to beat the powers that be and then think you're just going to walk around here. Oh, no. They stopped the Haitians on the inner tube before they even get close. Everybody else come right up in here. Oh, no. You're not going to beat the powers that be and think you're just going to walk around up in here. They will forever punish Haiti. You embarrassed us. You think they didn't know what they were doing when they got ready to punish Tupac? Oh, they knew exactly what they were doing. This is our get back at your mama. Go ahead.
And even when you look at him, you can tell that he had that hatred for the system.
Yep.
He was taught to hate the system.
You got it.
You look at just the mom, but his aunt's still in exile over in Cuba. Asata is still in Cuba, and they still trying to get her. So he's got it all kinds of ways. We can't get your aunt, we gonna get you. We can't get your mom, we gonna get you. We gonna get somebody gonna pay for their crimes.
You got it.
Or what we consider their crimes.
Right. And the crime is, you making other people stand up to us. Matthew chapter 22, and let's read verses 15 through 18.
Then went the Pharisees and took counsel how they might entangle him in his talk. And they sent out unto him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Master, we know that you are true, and teachest the way of Elohim in truth, neither care you for any man, for you regardeth not the person of men. Tell us therefore, what think you? Is it lawful to give tribute unto Caesar or not?
Right. So at this point, they're trying to get him in trouble with the law. What's the difference between any of those other tactics that we read about, where they're going to bring guns, teach you how to use guns, then turn around and testify, say, oh, Your Honor, they had guns. Didn't you bring them? Go ahead.
But Yahshua perceived their wickedness and said, why tempt you me, you hypocrites?
So he knew the scheme. He knew the game that they were playing. But we have to understand where the playbook comes from. Let's go to Luke chapter 22. Luke chapter 22, and we're going to start with verses 1 through 6.
Now the feast of unleavened bread drew near, which is called the Passover. And the chief priests and scribes sought how they might kill him, for they feared the people. Then entered Satan into Yehudas, surnamed Iscariot, being of the number of the 12. And he went his way, and communed with the chief priests and captains, how he might betray him unto them.
So then the betrayal is coming from the inner circle. All right? This is the deepest part of counterintelligence. Go ahead.
And they were glad and coveted to give him money. And he promised and sought opportunity to betray him unto them in the absence of the multitude.
All right, jump to verse 47.
And while he yet spake, behold, a multitude, and he that was called Yehudas, one of the 12, went before them, and drew near unto Yahshua to kiss him. But Yahshua said unto him, Yehudas, betray you the Son of Man with a kiss? When they which were about him saw what would follow, they said unto him, Adonai, shall we smite with the sword? And one of them smote the servant of the high priest, and cut off his right ear. And Yahshua answered and said, Suffer you thus far. And he touched his ear, and healed him. Then Yahshua said unto the chief priests, and captains of the temple, and the elders which were come to him, Be you come out as against a thief with swords and staves? When I was daily with you in the temple, you stretched forth no hands against me, but this is your hour and the power of darkness.
This is your hour and the power of darkness. Now, the part we have to deal with is how in the inner circle he was then betrayed with a kiss. So I want to read something here. There was and because I was always a fan of Tupac, it really upset me when he went to jail for rape. And I was watching a documentary and got some more information on it. All right, so the story goes that he left from being in the room with a woman, went to his room in the hotel and went to sleep. The guy who introduced him to the girl went into the room with one of his friends. After a while, the door opens and the two guys come out. The girl is screaming, Tupac did me wrong. My first question is, how does the girl scream the name of the one guy who was not in the room? All right. They end up getting arrested. Only one of the other individuals was charged, which is the one who introduced Tupac to the girl. His case was quickly separated from Tupac's and eventually disappeared. The other guy, who was in the courtroom and was never charged with a crime, walked right by them, yet no one knows who he is to this day. Every bit of it smelled like counterintelligence. When you talk about betrayed with a kiss, and you look at all things had to happen to discredit them. Remember the 5 parts of the breakdown of how you prevent. Tupac ended up saying, I'm not going to change the world, but I guarantee you I'm going to spark the brain of he who is going to change the world. So then we look at, these things. He ended up in the same courtroom that his mother had to be in to defend against the whole thing that came against the Black Panther Party. Now, you talk about coincidence. How you end up in the same courtroom? How you end up in the same courthouse? This same situation. So we have been told, that once things happen, you forget about it. Nobody else does this.
Go to the next graphic. And I want you to read the thing about the promised land.
You know, before we go on there.
Go ahead.
And he picked up his own charges besides what they were mad with him and the mom and the aunt and the rest of them. He shot 2 cops, right?
Right.
Got away with it.
Got away with shooting 2 cops.
Okay.
They couldn't get him for shooting 2 cops, but he got locked up for raping a woman that he wasn't in the room with. That's deep right there. But he can shoot 2 cops. Now, and he didn't. They had to let him go on the shooting the 2 cops because the cops had done stole the guns that they wasn't supposed to have anyway, and they was off duty. So they couldn't get that case, but they got him on something else. So I want to read this other thing that's happening right here in Georgia so that we understand that although people are telling us, you know, buy guns, don't be bringing up old stuff. You need to understand that nobody else does this, although they tell us to do it. Go ahead.
The Promised Land, which is a former plantation, was purchased by the slaves who used to be enslaved on the very land. The black family has owned this property for over 100 years. Gwinnett County is attempting to take the rest of the land by eminent domain.
Right. Now, they done already tried to get bought pieces of the land already. They're trying to rebuild the plantation. These people have purchased the plantation that they used to be enslaved on. Had it for all this time. Gwinnett County wanted it back. They always wanted it back. It has taken 100+ years to systematically get it back. They got most of it already. And they want to force them off that last bit. They knew that they couldn't eminent domain the whole piece. So they systematically got bits and pieces. And they like, oh no, this last bit we want. Go ahead.
So if you think people forget about the things lost years back, you must think again. How does that connect with the mindset of COINTELPRO, you might ask? Well, the job is to make sure another one does not rise. So if you take the legacy from the new generation, they are unable to pass those stories of triumph on and inspire the next generation to be better than the generation before.
Thus, why it became necessary to punish Tupac because of the things that his mother succeeded in. We're talking about a so-called uneducated woman who was able to fight a federal case by herself. Let's go to Revelation chapter 19. And if these things were not publicized, if people didn't say anything about it, they would have probably already quietly took the rest of that plantation, because they say that they want to build a museum. That museum that they're trying to build, you know who they're going to be talking about. Not the slaves, but the slave master. You do understand that, right? Revelation chapter 19, and let's start that at verse 1.
And after these things I heard a great voice of much people in heaven, saying, Hallelujah! Salvation and glory and honor and power unto the Adonai our Elohim. For true and righteous are his judgments. For he has judged the great whore, which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and has avenged the blood of his servants at her hand.
Has avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. See, this black Messiah, they ain't going to be able to stop. I don't care what kind of plan they implement. I don't care how many COINTELPROs they plant. They're not going to stop this one. Go ahead.
And again they said, Hallelujah. And her smoke rose up forever and ever. And the 24 elders and the 4 beasts fell down and worshipped Elohim that sat on the throne, saying, Amen, Hallelujah. And a voice came out of the throne, saying, Praise our Elohim, all you his servants, and you that fear him, both small and great. And I heard as it were the voice of a great multitude, and as the voice of many waters, and as of the voice of the mighty thunderings, saying, Hallelujah. For the Adonai Elohim omnipotent reigns. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him. For the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife has made herself ready.
Right. What the powers that be would like is for the wife to not make herself ready. The marriage can't proceed if the wife not ready. Go ahead.
And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. And he says unto me, Write, blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he says unto me, These are the true sayings of Elohim. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, See you do it not. I am your fellow servant, and of your brethren that have the testimony of Yahshua. Worship Elohim, for the testimony of Yahshua is the spirit of prophecy. And I saw heaven opened, and behold a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he does judge and make war.
Right. And the nations brag about all of their fine weaponry. And they finna get towed down by a dude on a horse. They have all this advanced weaponry, and they really believe that they have something. Each nation brags about the new missiles that they have developed. Watch what the man on the horse do. Go ahead.
His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood. And his name is called the Word of Elohim. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean.
Which is not the things that we would be thinking if somebody getting ready to go to war. This dude getting ready to go to war, he putting on white. Everybody else got on fatigues. They got on helmets. They laced up with their boots. He got on linen and sandals. What are he gonna do with those sandals? He got on linen. And then he got white linen.
Clean white linen.
Clean white linen. Do we ever consider that? That your clean white linen is a war outfit? The last thing we thinking about, we put on some clean white linen. No, man, I'm not finna wrestle. What's wrong with you? Do you see what I'm wearing? Go ahead.
And out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, and with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of El Shaddai. And he has on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Adonais of Adonais. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, Come and gather yourselves together onto the supper of the great El.
Right. The supper of the great El. So what's happening? A great sacrifice. All right? A beast are slain to make atonement. Their blood is shed. These man beasts or man without law, their blood must be shed to make atonement for the earth. That's a whole lot of blood. If you talk about blood having to be shed for one person's sin, how much blood has to be shed for a planet of sin, nations of sin? How much blood has to be shed for that? This is why he invites the fowls. Y'all gonna have to come get this because it's going to be a lot of blood. Go ahead.
That you may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army.
They believe that they will be able to defeat him. They have gathered their armies against him to fight. The first part is to try to prevent him from coming to existence. That's what the whole part that they were trying to do in the beginning. Every child that is among this age, kill him. To make sure that he doesn't come forth. All right, that didn't come to fruition. All right, now it is what it is. Now let's fight. So the first part of that fight is to prevent that Messiah from coming to pass. But once it does, they will not be humbled. They are going to fight. Go ahead.
And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. And the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh.
All right, and the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse. The sword proceeds out of his mouth. He speaks the word. It's the word that cuts them. The same way the word is supposed to cut us and make us straighten up. The word that proceeds out of his mouth ain't going to cut them. It's going to go through them. See, we get offended when we get cut. But that cut is supposed to make you better. See, if you get cut, that means the knife went this way. When a knife goes this way, it's called stab. People don't stab people for them to get back up. When you get cut, you're supposed to get back up. When you getting stab wounds, that's not the wounds of a friend. That's the wound of an enemy. Understand and learn the difference. Let us hear the conclusion of this matter. Let's go to Revelation chapter 1. Revelation chapter 1, and we're going to start with verses 1 through 3.
The revelation of Yahshua HaMashiach, which Elohim gave unto him, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant Yohanan, who bear record of the word of Elohim and of the testimony of Yahshua HaMashiach and of all things that he saw. Blessed is he that reads, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand.
Jump to verse 8.
I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, says the Adonai, which is, and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty. I, Yohanan, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation and in the kingdom and patience of Yahshua HaMashiach, was in the isle that is called Patmos, for the word of Elohim and for the testimony of Yahshua HaMashiach.
You know, do we ever consider that somebody is being imprisoned because they spoke the word? And it gets interesting because, you know, we whine about the things that we go through. We whine about, you know, us having to go through this, that, the third. How many of us have been in prison because we spoke the word? See, it's very difficult for us to be wrongfully punished because our whole push was that I did right. It feels strange to us to suffer when we did right. When it clearly says this is the thing that's pleasing unto Elohim. Not when you patiently take it and you were wrong. No, when you patiently take it and you were right. He was right. Go ahead.
I was in the Spirit on the Adonai's day, and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, and what you seeth write in a book, and send it on to the 7 churches which are in Asia, on to Ephesus, and on to Smyrna, and on to Pergamos, and on to Thyatira, and on to Sardis, and on to Philadelphia, and on to Laodicea. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they were burnt in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters.
Right. And you know, just in that, we have to understand that when it says to prevent the rise of a black Messiah, verse 15, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace. They're going to still have to deal with that black Messiah. No matter how many organizations they put together, no matter how many COINTEL agents they send, they still going to have to deal with this black Messiah. Go ahead.
And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp two-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shines in his strength.
And we don't have to worry about that sword that comes forth out of his mouth. We should be hearing it constantly. See, the sword that proceeds out of his mouth that cuts them should already be conditioning you. See, it's going to cut and stab them because they wouldn't hear it anytime because it's hard to reach us when we're prospering. And the nations have prospered. So they're not trying to hear all of these things. We should be hearing this and allowing it to do some cuts to us that we get reformed by it. See, there's a thing that if you take something slowly, even poison, there are people who can take, bits of arsenic, and it'll build up your immune system to where when everybody else gets the same dose of arsenic and the other person get it too, he don't die. Why does he not die? Because the little bits of arsenic was building up his immune system to the point where that little bit is not going to hurt him. But you being completely separated from it, that little bit, boom, you out of here. Okay. You should be getting these little cuts as we go along. You should be getting your little band-aids, getting yourself together. Here's the beauty of it. We get it in small increments. When you deal with them out there, they're going to get all of it at one time. Do you understand how powerful that's going to be? Imagine if you had to deal with all of your sins at one time, in one day, in 1 hour. Which of us shall ever stand? Not one of us. We don't see the beauty in going through small trials and tribulations because he working those things off little by little. We paying the same price that they paying, but he got us on a payment plan. Keep me on the payment plan. I do not need to be on everything due right now. See, that's what you sign when you get that mortgage. They said, look, you missed 3 payments. Then we're going to accelerate your bill. What do you mean accelerate my bill? I mean accelerate. You remember, you signed a note that says it's going to take 30 years to pay for this. Now I'm going to give you 30 years to pay off this debt. But if you miss 3 payments, I need it in 30 minutes. Now, let me look at it. So let me get this right, boss, listen to me. So I couldn't pay it in 3 months. But you think I got it in 30 minutes? Right. It becomes a debt that you can't pay. Don't put yourself in a position where we got to pay for all this in 30 minutes. Stay on the payment plan that you can afford. We all got to pay for something. As long as the payment plan is not unbearable, keep making your $2 payments. You'll pay off your sin one day. Hopefully we get to live forever. We keep 1,000 years from now, put in another $2 on it. As long as I can keep paying, we're good. That's all that we're going to do for today. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. And do make sure you guys show the graphic for the building fund. Like I said, we are close, but no cigar. All right? So let's keep focusing on this thing. Hopefully we have some good news going forward. That's all that we're going to do for today. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.